Response video to this here stealth badger guy. Nice enough sort, but yeah, I don't really care for his video much. He says, he calls it anti-natalists do have a point, but his video is kind of a critique, and I don't, and it's not a critique of the real arguments of anti-natalism, which is kind of annoying. So I'll play from a couple of different points. We'll start here, just to, because we don't need the, update on what we're talking about kind of stuff. We know the subject. No volume. Interesting.
That which suffers, namely living critters, tends to operate in a very small subset of living critters. Tends to operate from a subjective point of view, and by tends to, I mean absolutely fucking does. And then,
for those of you that rode in on the short bus, I don't even know what that, he has these little comments typed up here. So yeah, he's going to play this subjective game, like we can't say anything absolutely, and everything we might say absolutely, somehow that's not good enough. Like if you define just these extremes, that's not good enough. And I think of course it's good enough. It's like having a word like disaster and just drawing an arbitrary line somewhere and just saying, okay, things that cause this much damage fall into the category, and things that don't. And it's not a big deal to draw arbitrary lines when they are basically defining something, within a realm of reasonable error, we could even say. But I think it's just stupid to get into an argument about whether it's permissible or tolerable, logically or reasonably, to put everything into some sort of subjective category. There's no subjective debate about the fact that there's this thing called harm that happens to feeling creatures, that they have what are called unpleasant sensations, and by their very nature, those unpleasant sensations are in and of themselves, without any consequential, what they are a chain in events of, cause and effect events, but in and of themselves, they are bad things. Yes, it's a good thing if a mass murderer gets run over on the street. It's a bad thing that it suffers that instant. The instant it suffers is not a good thing. The quicker and the more instantaneously anything is killed, the better. So it's just a bullshit argument that somehow it's subjective. I don't accept that argument. I don't accept that it's reasonable to think there can be any other reasonable opinion. Our whole vocabulary, our whole language, our whole understanding of everything is built out of some understanding that, yes, you don't lock human beings in concentration camps, you don't starve them to death, you don't torture them. Yeah, this is stuff that can be said quite absolutely, and it's just an insult to our intelligence to waste time arguing about, well, it's all subjective and somebody can think the experiment is worth doing. Somebody can think it's an experiment. They have the power to do it, to create 6 million Jews. They have a power to create them, and then they have the right to do any experiments they want to on them if they subjectively think there's a purpose. Fuck you.
there are those who say that subjectively there is more suffering than joy in the universe, and
they're not saying it subjectively, they're proposing it as a theory, alright, and they're explaining the theory of value, and they're explaining that your perception of value, like a heroin addict, is based on your psychological perspective, and that perspective can have you totally not understanding value, that your stupid high isn't worth bashing somebody over the head with a brick to get the money to buy your stupid drug, that's an insanely stupid equation. Alright, that your high isn't worth it. And I would argue that if we could monetize human experience, alright, and put a real value, a relatively rational value, that people would pay far more to avoid the miseries of life than they would pay to secure the pleasures of life. That is to say, they would sacrifice a whole pile of pleasures to avoid certain miseries. And I defy you to make a counter argument, because it's fundamentally logical. It's fundamentally in the interest of any sentient creature, because the negatives are profoundly weightier in terms of their value substance than the trivial, often silly almost, pleasures we derive in playing this stupid life competitive game bullshit.
Here is where antinatalists have their point.
I mean, if you had a kid, you know, and your kid had cancer, how many pleasures would you give up to spare your child that suffering? Get real, fucker. So now you're saying they have a point. But you can't say we have a point if you're going to throw words like subjective all over the place. There's just no point in saying there's a point when you're going to call everything subjective.
Because if you look at the structure of the human brain, of the human mind, since they're really intertwined, we tend to always consider the condition we've experienced for a while as normal, and have...
Okay, well, he's going to go into some of the psychology stuff, and I'm not saying it's irrelevant, but really it is... Yeah, we have to have these discussions, and we also forget the bad once it's in the past, okay? So if you had to face something happening tomorrow versus it already in your past, it's a huge difference, all right? So, yeah, once you've experienced something, you can write it off as a, okay, it's a past expense. My life was way too expensive. I had to start over and face that again. But once it's in the past, it's done. It's finished. I don't have to worry about it anymore. So there's lots of games played with our psychology that corrupt our value equations. And that's my whole friggin' argument, is that all of our value equations, especially the positive ones, are completely contrived by our psychology, and that there is no real value that we're chasing. We're just chasing this perception of a gain of satisfaction, because that's how we've been built. And it's a stupid design, is the point of the whole fucking conversation. Excuse my French. So I'm going to jump ahead a bit.
As far as human perception, because human perception is subjective. And the idea of saying that an objective standard can define absolute bliss, you know, an orgasm when you're not being beaten up, or, you know, a well-made beef Wellington, or whatever dish you happen to find absolutely fantastic, and absolute suffering, being burned alive, drowning. My response is that if a objective scale is only useful at the ends of the scale, it's not a scale, and it's not useful.
Yeah, I just find that idiotic. Of course it's useful. It has some functionality. I mean, if you can measure some gross functionality of something, you don't need to do it precisely. If you can find out your car gets somewhere between 25 and 32 miles to a gallon, it's still knowledge. It's still information. It's valuable. Okay, it's not as precise as you like, so what? I mean, it's just stupid to say, not being able to say these extremes, that yes, if you had to put on one side of the table, oh, the satisfaction I would get if my favorite baseball team wins the World Series, and the suffering of getting diagnosed with some kind of cancer, oh yeah, it's not really going to be a contest, is it? I mean, you would throw away about 7,000 of those little World Series victories to avoid that C word, wouldn't you, fucker? Come on.
It's attempting to create a dichotomy where none exists. So,
I don't even know what that means. You know, a dichotomy where none exists. Well, there's this problem, okay? To live, all right, you've got to accept the fact that there's this thing called deprivation, hunger, want, need, and a potential to be harmed. That is the price you're going to pay for this want thing, this satisfaction, the thing you get when you actually gain what it is that you're chasing. So when you climb your little mountain of bullshit to get to the top because you're hungry just to put your little flag in the top of the silly mountain, yeah, there's a price to be paid for that. Not only by you personally, but by other sentients that are going to be fucked over by you in climbing your mountain. In the exploitation that your life is going to be built out of. Your comfort. Your shirt.
That is my opinion. Fuck it if you don't like it. You know, I'm not telling anyone else what they should believe.
Well, whatever. You should be able to make an argument without just saying fuck it, but fine. You know, if you don't get that there's a rational standard, a theory that can be argued from some sort of rational foundation, logical foundation, where you establish some reasonable premises that are essentially indisputable, unless you're going to contrive some kind of fake universe or, you know, some kind of fairy story. We get the idea here. We understand what's motivating us. Attraction and repulsive forces. And the argument is that most of the attraction is probably made out of a subtle kind of repulsion. And that the whole mechanism doesn't really have any function. There's no real net positive gain that can be accomplished out of the damn thing. And the real subjectivity is the relative perception of value. The very fact that you think there's accomplishment in even something as silly as the word survival. You can't defend survival as an accomplishment. You can't defend how it, you know, scratches any itch in the universe whatsoever. So it doesn't mean a damn thing. So if all of this whole experiment, this whole human experiment, if this was a rat experiment, and it was rats I was playing with, and we were sitting there discussing, well, what's in the best interest of the rats? Should we perpetuate more rats? So should we engineer it so the rats can do this and the rats can do that a little more efficiently? No, we'd say there's no fucking point in playing this stupid game with the goddamn rats.
But I would like to bring up the weakness in the point antinatalism makes.
Yeah, we don't touch the two important points. The first point is the imposition point, okay? The fact that you don't play this game, you don't roll these dice, okay, with yourself, with your own interest. You're rolling them with some other sentient creature's interest. A new consciousness will come into the world, and what it's going to be is not under your control. And if you don't have control over a situation, then you should have some insurance against the disaster. You should have some way to compensate for when things go wrong. And there is no compensation. There's just a fucking victim who's fucked over because you have some silly notion that you have to create another slob to go climb Mount Stupid. And that's the first argument. The second argument is the one about this whole value equation, that we are not functionally doing anything. There's no problem for us to solve but the problems we create by being here. By being sentient and alive and conscious, you open the door to harm. And unless you can open the door to harm with some kind of defending purpose, some sort of accomplishment besides, oh, I satisfied my hunger. Sorry, slobbered. There's no fucking point. A little bit hot. So yeah, you're not accomplishing anything. It's just bullshit. You deal with the fact that the whole fucking human race is wound up in this stupid rationalization, a justification made out of nothing. For thousands of years, it was God who said what the human race was here to do. Well, now you have to come up with something better. And to say, well, the DNA says so, is just as retarded as saying the word God. So try again. What's the function? What's the accomplishment? What can the human race produce as a productive product to justify the expense of the suffering it imposes playing the stupid game?
And that is that with subjective suffering, which is, I would hazard to guess, an indication of awareness of condition. An indication that the current...
Oh, you know, so now he's going to play this whole stupid game where suffering isn't suffering, but some asshole enjoys getting punched in the face so he can win, you know, strongest man award or some other bullshit. So again, he's throwing out, he's just insulting real suffering in the world. He's just, fuck the people with brain tumors, fuck people with cancer, fuck all the people doing all the, fuck Alzheimer's, fuck all the shit that happens to people, fuck car accidents, fuck broken back, fuck all this shit. I'm going to talk about silly, stupid examples where some minority of human beings derive some pleasure from getting themselves beaten up. Would you want to be one of those human beings? Would you actually want to be a human being who enjoys being humiliated and beat up, or who needs to do it to get sexual gratification? Do you want to be one of those? Is that such a superior form of human life that you would want to be that? You'd want to be something that needs to be humiliated to get off? I don't think so, asshole.
Negative condition you're in will continue, and that you're helpless to do anything about it.
Why do you type on fucking leaves? E.g., you are in pain and you know you can't do anything about it. Yeah, well, again, it's not just, this whole word pain keeps getting into trouble here because there's sufferings that aren't necessarily pain. I can say if I gave you 10 years of perpetual nausea, okay, you wouldn't be in something called strictly pain, but you'd be goddamn uncomfortable. I mean, there's tedious kind of things. There's things that, there's grief, there's loneliness, there's all kinds of emotional pain, suffering, all right, that's not strictly definable as some sort of, oh yeah, just give him some morphine and it'll be all better.
Or that you will never achieve the kind of satisfaction you want, or however you want to define suffering.
Oh, whatever. This whole idea that you're not going to find, nobody finds the satisfaction they want. Right? People land on the fucking moon, and what do? They come back to fucking Earth, and they try to climb stupid mountains to find fucking Noah's Ark. Or they do some other kind of crazy-ass bullshit, because they're insatiable, stupid idiots. There's the people with billions of dollars, and they still can't fucking find gratification.
There has to be some component of awareness to it. Because otherwise it's just pain.
Well, whatever. It's just pain is a silly notion. Like that somehow doesn't matter. Like somehow when you were 7 or 6 and you had no real context for your pain, it still wasn't pain. If you were sick, you really weren't sick. I mean, come on. This is just such bullshit.
Now, with awareness, I don't want to say because of awareness, but because I have no reason to believe these things are necessarily related, there came certain emotional safety valves that other critters have too, to one degree or another.
Oh, safety valve is just such a silly word. All right, they're not safety valves. They're social. They're constructs of social evolution, and that's all they are. Okay, crying and laughter are constructs of social evolution. They exist because of how they affect the thing witnessing it, more than how they affect the thing enjoying it or not enjoying it.
And the two biggest examples of this are laughing and crying. And in the same way we can trigger the pleasure and pain responses with fiction and drugs and things like that, we can...
Right, so if you were doing this experiment on chimpanzees, right, they're conscious animals, you want to derive the most pleasure for them, so you give them drugs that make them laugh all day, you could justify doing the experiment. There'd be some fucking reason you think chimpanzees, you need another billion of them or something, so you can do this stupid fucking laughing experiment. So you can just have a billion chimpanzees laughing all day, and you'll call that a fucking accomplishment. And at the price of any suffering that might be incurred on some of them, as you stick your electrodes in their head to try to find the laughing center, you try to do this, you try to do that. So the victims don't matter, because in the end you'll have a bunch of laughing chimpanzees, and somehow that'll be an accomplishment. I mean, this is all just human-centric bullshit. If you were doing this fucking experiment on any other fucking animal, you'd be able to see how fucking ludicrous it is.
Trigger the responses for laughter or tears in much the same way. So we are in the unique position of being a species that has its hands, however fumblingly and clumsily, on the controls For us.
Yeah, for what? For just making us as retarded as possible. For doing exactly to totally insult our intelligence and say, yes, let's just chase the bliss. Let's just manufacture an artificial happiness. So let's, even in the middle of a war, we can just give you the little magic pill and it'll all go away and you'll just sit and laugh and have a good time because we have controlled what we feel. I mean, this still doesn't get to any real issue. It doesn't get to any of the real suffering that is still sitting right there looking us in the face. And it's still going to be a real price for this stupid bullshit game that you're playing. That you're defending.
Us. We can alter the way we feel about pretty much anything.
Yeah, right. They've been talking that shit forever, and you don't see it in humanity somewhere, do you? You see people addicted to drugs, addicted to, alcohol, all kinds of ways of trying to find some sort of relief, and that's what they're looking for. They're just looking for relief. They're looking for escape. So this is all just a big pile of fantasy talk. We don't even know if it's possible that any of these effects could last more than a few days anyway, even if you had some sort of bliss mechanism that it wouldn't wear off, because you would need the deprivation to be hard enough for the hunger to be strong enough for there to be a real appetite. And you need a real appetite, for there to be real value in satisfying the urge or the desire. I mean, it has to be a little bit strong for it to have any meaning.
Although right now it's at the stage of reprogramming a computer by tossing a handful of iron filings into one part or another at it. We are getting better at it, which is scary. So
yeah, I just don't see the evidence of that. Like I said, I don't see people all that much. I don't see people taking happy pills as they go to their shitty jobs and enjoy themselves while they're at work. I don't really see any real practical solutions to the aggravations and the hostilities and the inaneness of life. I see a lot of people just walking away. I see a lot of people just rejecting every part of life because they're just fucking fed up with it and sick of it.
Really, it makes it very, very difficult to say that there is more suffering, or that there necessarily will be more suffering, because...
you think that's difficult? You think it's difficult to look at human psychology, 7 billion people on this planet, the prospect of a future war, catastrophic economic circumstances, all kinds of bullshit that can go on here, another kind of an AIDS virus, another kind of swine flu or bird flu or some other kind of thing that really does some real harm. Come on. This is just such fairy talk, this unicorn happy pappy. Well, it's all going to be okay because we're going to come up with some little technical fix and everything will be just fine.
Suffering as we understand it now may not necessarily be.
Well, it's going to be unless we get really, really, really serious about controlling the conscious experience. And that kind of control isn't going to happen in a world of 7 billion people with 7 billion agendas. All right? It's only going to happen in a world where you have a small human population all motivated to work towards a common goal. And you're not going to get that. So if you can't get that, you're not going to get to that fucking future. It isn't going to goddamn happen. And even if we could get to it, there'd still be no point in doing it. Because if it was any other animal, you were doing it too. If you were creating virtual reality for it, great apes, you'd say, yeah, well, maybe we'll spend $10 on it, but it's not really worth doing a whole lot of work and a whole lot of experiments and torturing a whole bunch of apes to accomplish. Why bother?
It may not be something that exists for a large segment of the population. There will always be human beings who do not modify themselves and their perceptions.
How do you know there will always be? See, I mean, you say these things, you say nobody can say absolutely, and then you say absolutely. And it's just, that's kind of fail. to get to your future, like I said, I mean, humans are going to have to learn how to cooperate and have a common goal. So I don't think that's necessarily true. I mean, it seems probable that some people, yeah, maybe a very tiny minority, would say, I'm not going to take aspirin. But let's say you had a miracle drug out there, a perfect miracle, perfect drug, made you live forever. I don't think there'd be too many people, made you healthy and young, let's say. I don't think there'd be too many people not taking it.
Or who do not manage their tolerances, or who do become addicts, or who do get lost in escapist fiction, or who do laugh inappropriately at funerals.
Isn't the whole life thing escapist fiction? I mean, what the fuck are you living for? What are you accomplishing? Absolutely nothing. It's all built on a fiction, on a fucking momentum. Everybody else is doing it, so I'll do it. That's all it is, and it's a silly competition to climb a nothing mountain, to plant a stupid flag, and to do nothing. For nothing. So just to do it all over again. To just keep swatting spokes in a stupid wheel in a squeaky cage. I mean, fuck it. I mean, it's all fiction if you think there's something happening here that needs to happen.
Although sometimes laughter at a funeral is a very healing thing, depending upon the context. Yet another notch in the suffering and really experience is subjective.
Oh, again, these trite little silly examples, you know what I mean? Oh, I stubbed my toe and yeah, it hurt, but I laughed. I mean, yeah, let's use these stupid examples. So yeah, I got a diagnosis from the doctor, I got a fucking inoperable brain tumor. Ha 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 ha, let's have a laugh. Fuck you.
Or emotional experience is subjective. So really it comes down to, we have the ability to modify what suffering is in ourselves and what we experience as suffering or pain or pleasure or joy.
Oh, whatever. Like I said, I don't see any examples of all that happening on any kind of mass scale. I see a lot of desperate people throwing all kinds of crap at their brain, and I don't see all these blissfully charming, wonderful, happy, productive people. So fuck that bullshit.
And it seems to me that there is a great deal of fear about modifying our own perceptions and modifying our own, really looking to the abyss that...
Evolutionary, not only are we strange, we are just getting started. Whatever the fuck that means. Just getting started. I mean, no, we're just getting finished, okay? The game is sort of over. Alright, we found out it's a stupid game. It's a DNA molecule competing with versions of its own self. Alright, going absolutely nowhere. I stick a sword in you, you point a gun at my head, I point a bazooka at your head, you point a nuke at my head, I point a photon torpedo at your butt. I mean, it's just an endless cycle of stupid, pointless competition to achieve absolutely nothing.
Is the consequences of moral subjectivity. And
it's a silly notion, moral subjectivity. Yeah, right. There's no right and wrong. No, we can just make it up. Suffering isn't bad, pleasure isn't good, comfort isn't good. No, I mean, we can't even be that fucking functional as an intelligence. We can't even accept something that fucking obvious. No, we have to call that subjective. Oh, fuck you.
To me, it's a very liberating thing and a very, very demanding thing, because it means I have to think up why I believe what I believe.
Well, why do you think, okay, we should create need that doesn't need to exist? So why don't you just answer that question? Why create a need that doesn't need to exist? Why create a needful organism that doesn't need to exist, that only subjectively, because some fucktard has a notion in their silly fucking head? Alright, that's all. It's just satisfying a notion. Explain what else it's satisfying besides an ego notion.
I have to either stick to it or alter my positions when I discover I'm wrong. And it means that there is no place that is not open to question in my life.
Oh, what? And you just do that forever, right? You just keep saying, well, I don't know nothing, I can't know nothing, I don't see nothing, I can't figure out nothing forever. Pfft, brilliant. No, I think we know a hell of a goddamn lot.
To me, we are the species that has the capability to transcend suffering, not to some higher place, but to a condition I don't even think we have a name for yet, because...
Yeah, a condition of what? Complete stupidity. You know, the maximum stupidity. We can achieve maximum ludicrous stupidity. Yeah, and we can do something we know is pointless, and for the pointless purpose of super pointlessness. Fuck.
It is not a I suspect it's not a nirvana, and I suspect it's not hell. I suspect it's...
Well, of course, everybody just keeps suspecting it's just okay, it all balances out, it's all fucking flow and ebb, and it's all yin and yang, and it's all bing and bong. I mean, this is just such bullshit. You're just making this crap up. Okay, you're living in a world where there's real hard suffering that you wouldn't want to fucking endure. Okay, that's part of this roulette wheel thing you're spinning. Alright, and just because it doesn't happen to you, because you're relatively safe from it, you can say, well, it's just yang, and I'm yinin.
Like most human experiences, somewhere in between. But the meaning of what we do has a potential for changing.
Yeah, the meaning, again, yeah, a key word there. The meaning. Chasing arbitrary, contrived, DNA contrived mission statements. Yes, you must feed, you must consume, you must reproduce, this is all you're for. You must climb Mount Stupid and plant your stupid Mount Stupid flag. Yeah, why be obedient to that quietus, that tripe?
And once that is on the table, once we look at the fact that we have been modifying pain and pleasure and suffering and joy for thousands of years, through even things like religion.
Yeah, and for what end? What is the grand success? There is none. There's no accomplishment here. We got pointy, stupid pyramids that are monuments to wasted labor. We got cathedrals that are monuments to wasted, stupid ideas. What the fuck do we have to show for all of this crap? Nothing.
Then it seems like the question of antinatalism is being asked a little too late.
Yeah, like that makes any sense, right? Oh yeah, it's too late to put out the fire. The fire's still burning, asshole. So what do you mean it's too late? There's still more forest to burn. There's still more sentience to torture. How the fuck is it too late? God damn it.
There ever really was a window of opportunity for that question to have meaning.
No, it can only have meaning when we have facts, okay? So, yeah, you can only do it when you actually understand where we came from. You understand what a DNA molecule is. You understand what 4 billion years of evolution are. You understand the terminality of the whole mechanism of the universe and the fact that the whole fucking thing is going to get burnt to a cinder anyway in the end, and that we might as well leave here gracefully than wait for nature to bury us the hard way.
It's just my take on it. Thank you for your time and attention. And may you deal with the vicissitudes of your life with laughter or with tears, as necessary and appropriate.
Oh, whatever that means. No, may I have the privilege of not being imposed upon. That's what I would like, is the privilege of not being imposed upon by stupid fucktards who have no fucking mission statement, no explanation of what they're going to fucking accomplish doing this experiment. Why should I be a rat in their silly, stupid maze? Why? Alright? What is their justification? They want? They have to do a little better than they want. Shit. So anyway, till next time and such. Sorry, a little hostile, but I mean, these are arguments that have already been fucking goddamn made. Shouldn't have to be making them over and over again.